Today on Commander Replay, Dinosaur Week continues with Tetzimoc Primal Death. Is it true that three horns never play with long necks? Find out next on Commander Replay. Alright, welcome back to Dinosaur Week, everyone. We are looking at Tetzimoc Primal Death today, and this is the commander that literally no one is talking about. Here's a screen capture from EDH Rec from about a week ago, and there were literally 0 deck lists posted. So Tetzimoc is 4 black for a 6/6 with Death Touch. You may pay 1 black, reveal Tetzimoc from your hand, put a prey counter on target creature, activate this ability only during your turn, and then when Tetzimoc enters the battlefield, destroy each creature your opponents control with a prey counter on it. So you do have to jump through some hoops to be able to use Tetzimoc efficiently in a game of Commander, because it doesn't start out in your hand. I did find a deck list posted somewhere on Tetzimoc, and they were trying to go with the Graveyard Reanimator strategy, and I don't feel like that was the right direction to go. So the direction that I'm going with this deck is running a whole bunch of tutors, and we're basically just going to go for Command Beacon ASAP. So then we can use the Command Beacon to put Tetzimoc into our hand, and we don't really have to mess around with putting Tetzimoc into the graveyard for any reason. Once Tetzimoc is in our hand, things should be pretty straightforward from that point. So what we would do, put prey counters on things as we need to, and then when we have enough mana, we would cast Tetzimoc. Depending on the board state, it probably won't kill everything on the board, but you can at least get rid of the things that are most threatening. But then as I started thinking about it more, that's kind of a one-trick pony. What else can we do with Tetzimoc? So the thing that I've decided to do is build around the Death Touch mechanic. We have a couple of cards like Viridian Longbow. This creature deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Thornbite Staff deals 1 damage to target creature or player, and whenever a creature dies, untap this creature, which will be really good with Death Touch. And then beyond that, we have Erratic Portal. Once Tetzimoc is in play, we can return it to our hand if we want to. We can also do that with any of our other ETB creatures if we need to, such as Gonti, who has both the ETB half and the Death Touch half, should go really well in this deck, and is just a great card on its own anyway. And last minute change to the deck, instead of Shieldred, I decided to go with Runescarred Demon in the 7 mana slot, just because I feel like there's already a lot of ways to kill creatures in this deck. We don't need Shieldred to kill more creatures. I feel like Runescarred Demon will benefit with some of the light graveyard recursion in Phyrexian Reclamation and Volrath's Stronghold. Anyway, let's go find a game. Dinosaur Week continues. Today we're playing some Tetzimoc Primal Death. I don't know why. This is another commander from the Dinosaur cycle that I'm strangely excited to play. Not many people have been talking about it, because you do have to jump through some hoops to be able to use them, but I think I found a way to actually build around Tetzimoc in a way where it can be a reasonable build around me commander. Take a look at our opening hand. We have some good stuff in here. We have Cabal Coffers, Divining Top, we have some card draw and Moonlight Bargain, and we got some lands, so I'm gonna go ahead and keep that. Mosswort Bridge for the Izuri opponent. Gonna hide away a card. So our turn 1, we draw into another land, we will play a swamp, play our Divining Top, set a stop for our upkeep. Oh, looks like we've already got it set. Mystical Tutor for the Intet opponent on their upkeep. So they're going to get to search for an instant or sorcery and put it on top of their library. Finds a Cultivate, solid choice. Opponent drops down a Simic Growth Chamber, so they will have to bounce a land back to their hand. Lightning Greaves for the Izuri opponent. So our turn 2, we're in our upkeep step. We're gonna rearrange the top of our library with Sensei's Divining Top. Ooh, a Sol Ring, huh? We'll put the land on the bottom, Grave Titan in the middle, and then Sol Ring on top so that we can draw into the Sol Ring. We'll play another swamp and drop the Sol Ring. Nothing else we can do, so pass the turn. So let's take a look at what our opponents are actually playing. First up is Intet the Dreamer, is 3 blue-red-green for a 6/6 flying. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2 and a blue. If you do, exile the top card of your library face down. You may look at that card for as long as it's exiled, and you may play that card without paying its mana cost, as long as Intet remains on the battlefield. So Intet basically gives you a way to cheat things off the top of your library. It's a commander that I've seen a little bit, but I've never actually seen Intet's ability resolve in combat all that many times. But we'll see what our opponent's trying to do today. A lot of times people pick it for its colors. Intet isn't going to pick up the levels of hate that something like Maelstrom Wanderer is going to get. Opponent lays down a Trigon Predator and puts the Lightning Greaves on it. Does not attack, so we're actually pretty lucky, because they could have blown up our Sol Ring on that, and that would be pretty painful. So we may have to remember their act of kindness. We could play the Moonlight Bargain this turn, actually. Maybe we'll do that. So we'll draw into the Grave Titan, and we'll play the Reliquary Tower, and we'll leave up the mana for Moonlight Bargain, and probably do that on an end step somewhere. Also, a Sapphire Medallion is down for the Intet opponent, and they finally drop their Cultivate, so this will get them some lands. Our second opponent is Izuri Claw of Progress, is 2 green-blue for a 3/3. Whenever you cast a creature with power 2 or less, you get an experience counter. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is the number of experience counters you have. So essentially with Azuri, you play a bunch of small creatures, and then Azuri will put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on them and make them all huge. I know there's a couple interesting choices in this deck. There's the one that can steal creatures based on power and toughness, and there's also things like Gyre Sage, which like having +1/+1 counters. You'll see a lot of small creatures, and particularly ones that care about +1/+1 counters. And Azuri Claw of Progress coming into play. Still no attacks from the Trigon Predator. Seems like the Azuri opponent is trying not to make enemies. I'm down with that. And then finally, our last opponent is Inala Archmage Ritualist. Is 2 blue-black red for a 4/5 with Eminence. Whenever another non-token wizard enters the battlefield under your control, if Inala is in the command zone or on the battlefield, you may pay 1. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that wizard. That token gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step, and tap 5 untapped wizards you control. Target player loses 7 life. I haven't actually seen this deck yet. It's not something that I've run into. I'm a little nervous about it. I know that there's all kinds of like blank shenanigans and things like that I'm sure our opponent will attempt. From what I've heard, Inala is a value machine. So opponent casts a Trinket Mage and they pay the 1, they'll get 2 copies of Trinket Mage, which means they'll probably find all the mana rocks. So Mana Crypt for the Inala opponent, which was one of the reveal cards. Opponent digs up a Mana Crypt and a Sol Ring, so they're going to have all the colorless mana. Sol Ring coming down. The problem with the Eminence ability is that we're not going to be able to interact with it super well. Opponent sending one of their Trinket Mages into the Intet opponent. I'm down with that. I'm going to cast this Moonlight Bargain so that we can F6 through the rest of our opponent's turn. Ooh, there's some good stuff. We have a Black Market, Thran Dynamo, Expedition Map. I think we pay 10 and take them all. I think that's a thing that we do. I would keep everything. The only one that I might pitch is the Swamp, but since we're only in turn 4 of the game, I feel like having that extra land is worth it. Yeah, we're just going to pay 10 life and keep everything. We'll need to draw into some of our life gain after. We have that Grim Tutor, which can find some for us. Also, we have our Reliquary Tower down, so we don't need to worry about hand size right now. So that's also part of the reason that I decided to go with drawing all 5 and paying the 10 life. Robert Bakker first put forth the notion that dinosaurs were warm-blooded in his book published in 1986. The discovery was based upon a number of factors, including rate of growth, rate of evolution, predator-to-prey ratio, and their active lifestyle, all of which match warm-blooded animals. What I would absolutely love is a way to protect our artifacts from this Trigon Predator, but actually what we can do, since we have multiple tutors now, I'm going to Vampiric Tutor on our upkeep, so the token gets exiled. So I'm going to Vampiric Tutor on our upkeep for something that can block the Trigon Predator. We'll have a total of 5 mana available to us. I'm thinking Vampire Nighthawk is probably the way to go. We can cast it, we can do some other stuff, and it's just a good card to have. Yeah, nothing else really jumping out at me, so we'll go with the Vampire Nighthawk. Play the Swamp. Drop down the Vampire Nighthawk. We have 1 floating, we'll use that on the Expedition map, and then we'll take a gander at the top of our library with the Sensei's Divining Top. We got Dark Ritual, Myriad Landscape, Volrath Stronghold. Volrath Stronghold is pretty good, so we're going to put that on top. I'm going to put the Myriad Landscape on the bottom of that pile. We'll put Dark Ritual in the middle. The other thing, too, is that Vampire Nighthawk can get us some life back, which is really important since we just burned ourselves for 10 drawing cards. 3 visits for the Intet opponent. Clone coming down for the Intet opponent, and they decide to clone our Vampire Nighthawk. So they're wanting to get some protection of their own. Vampire Nighthawk, solid magic card. The thing that I like to do with it a lot is put a Lash Writhe or Nightmare Lash on top of it. That way it gets huge for all the swamps you have, and it can gain you some pretty big chunks of life back, which is really relevant in a black deck when you're probably spending your life to draw cards and do things like that. So opponent plays a Phyrexian Metamorph, copies the Sol Ring, interesting choice, decides to move the boots over onto the Azuri, and gonna drop down a Sakura Tribe Elder and get an Azuri counter. So Trigon Predator going into the Inala opponent, I'm okay with that. They will get to destroy an artifact, and they choose the Sol Ring, also cracks their Sakura Tribe Elder. So Mana Crypt flip for the Inala opponent, and they lose the flip down to 35. Inala decides not to do anything, which always makes me really nervous when a blue player just sits there with open mana. Nothing worse than that. Volrath Stronghold is our draw. Chances are we will probably end up shuffling away the Dark Ritual. We'll see. Right now, I'm going to drop down the Volrath Stronghold just in case of a wheel effect. I want to get this Cabal Coffers out of our hand at some point in case of a wheel effect as well. So we will pay 4, get down our Thran Dynamo, and then we'll drop this Black Market into play. So the combo we want to get, if we get Thornbite Staff, put it on the Vampire Nighthawk, with the Black Market out, we're going to start to gain a ton of mana. Gilded Lotus coming down for the Intet opponent. Ooh, Leyline of Anticipation for the Intet opponent. That is a really powerful magic card. If you have access to it, you should definitely be putting it in your deck. Vildakan Orrery is an artifact that does the same thing. Being able to play all of your cards at instant speed is just absolutely ridiculous. Even something as simple as like Wrath of God or Damnation, when that becomes instant speed, you can really blow out your opponents with it. Hornet Queen for the Izuri opponent. That is probably going to trigger Izuri a few times. Yep, that is a total of 6 triggers for Izuri. Something's probably about to get huge. Opponent says, oh boy. So 6 experience counters for the Izuri opponent, and they're going to load up the Trigon Predator. Trigon Predator now a 9/10. Luckily our Vampire Nighthawk has Death Touch. Let's see where they decide to point it. Still swinging in at the Inala. Fine by me. Inala has a response. Let's see what they have to say about it. That's a Teferi. So just casting their Teferi, we can no longer play spells at instant speed. Opponent asks, how does Teferi work with the ley line? That's a good question. I think Teferi overrides the ley line. I think restrictions trump, I forget what the other word is, buffs, I guess. I've been around the game long enough to know a little bit about judge rules, but I am not a judge, and I'm not great with them by any means. I assume that's probably level 1 judge stuff, but one opponent thinks it may be a case of which is most recent and which Teferi wins. We'll find out. So Trigon Predator hits, Inala goes down to 26, and they're also going to lose their Mana Crypt. Opponent called Trigon Predator the Enchantment Killing Fish. Doesn't blow up the Mana Crypt? Oh, you may. Huh, they choose no. Interesting. Chooses not to use the ability. Inala wins the Mana Crypt flip. Stays at 26. Opponent said that's why he cloned the 2-3 guy. I tutored for the 2-3 guy. Opponent says, haha, nice, I appreciate it. So our current position right now, there's a couple things we want before I really feel like we're in a great position. If we get Thornbite Staff or something similar, then we can shoot down the creatures that are in play, which will be really nice. When we do that, that will make us the target. We'll need to be in a position where we can win the game from there, which I don't feel like we're quite there yet. We have the 1 tutor in our hand still, and as much as I would like to get the Thornbite Staff, I think we also need some more card draw. Our hand is starting to get a little bit thin right now. And beyond that, land-wise, I'd also like to find our command beacons so that we can use Tetzimoc. We have the expedition map in play, but I want to get this Cabal Coffers down so it's not at risk of being wheeled. All 3 of our opponents have blue in them, and 2 of them have red in their casting costs, so this game is definitely ripe for some wheel effects. Not that they necessarily synergize with our opponents, but they're just powerful in general. Wouldn't be surprised if there's at least a couple somewhere between our opponent's 3 deck lists. That's a Nicole Bolas God Pharaoh coming into play. Please don't use the Exile Hands mode. Nice, he uses the target opponent exiles card from the top of his or her library, and you may cast that card. Alright, our hand is intact. Nicole Bolas up to 9 counters, and a Mimic Vat coming down. Very nice. Mimic Vat will actually be pretty good with what our deck is trying to do. Some species and genera of dinosaurs are known only by a few small fossils that have been recovered, such as Argentinosaurus. Not so for Triceratops. 47 specimens were recovered between 2000 and 2010 in the Hell Creek Formation. End step, we're going to activate the Sensei's Divining Top and take another look at what's on top of our library. Phyrexian Arena is definitely the card we want. We need to refill our hand. So back to our turn. Draw into the Phyrexian Arena. We do not get any mana off Black Market since nothing has died. Get the Cabal Coffers down. Activate the Cabal Coffers to turn some of our colorless mana into black mana. And since we have the Phyrexian Arena, I think we go for the Thornbite Staff right here. Get Thornbite Staff, play the Phyrexian Arena, play the Thornbite Staff. Interestingly, I am looking at the Thornbite Staff on Magic Online, and you cannot see the equip cost on it. The equip cost is 4, however. We're just going to keep staying put. I run Vampire Nighthawk just for the good value that it brings in being a flying death touch blocker that can gain you life, but it is also randomly a shaman. I found this out last night when I was playing the deck, that if you cast the Vampire Nighthawk, Thornbite Staff will automatically get equipped to it, because it is a shaman. So opponent plays a copy enchantment, copying our Phyrexian Arena. So it appears the Intet deck is a clone deck. Seems to be playing a lot of copy effects. And opponent's going to cast a Bribery. Ugh. Yeah, there's some good stuff in our deck. No Eldrazi, thankfully, but still some good stuff. Sometimes Bribery reads pay 5 mana, win the game. Other times it doesn't. Opponent gets a Massacre Worm. Nice, that's gonna wipe so many creatures. We're about to get so many counters on black market. Bam! That's also going to whittle down opponent's life totals pretty well, too. So a bunch of black market triggers, looks like about 6 of them. Mimic Vat triggers twice. Opponent can get a Hornet Queen out of the Mimic Vat. That seems really good. So it looks like they go with Trinket Mage under the Mimic Vat instead of the Hornet Queen. I personally would have went with the Hornet Queen, but that's just me. And then our opponent's going to lose some life off of the Massacre Worm. If we find our homeward path, we can steal the Massacre Worm. We could get it with the Expedition map, but we do need to find Command Beacon so that we can use Tetzimoc's ability. Oh, and opponent Massacre Worms again. That clears out the rest of the board. We are going to have so much mana on our turn. Black Market now has 8 counters on it. Unfortunately, this Trigon Predator is still hanging around. That's kind of an issue. I have a feeling we're probably about to lose something. Unless Trigon Predator attacks into the Nicol Bolas, which is not a terrible idea. Opponent plays a Reality Shift on the Vampire Nighthawk. So Trigon Predator now has 15 power. Unfortunately, our Vampire Nighthawk is under the Mimic Vat, so we will not be able to Volrath Stronghold it back to play. Alright, opponent doesn't attack us with the Trigon Predator. Nice. Question is, how do we get a flying blocker to not lose our stuff to Trigon Predator? Our commander is still going to have summoning sickness, so just casting it with the Thornbite Staff isn't going to be the answer. So Leyline of Anticipation going down, that's a great choice by our opponent. Leyline is very, very powerful. So life totals are finally starting to move in this game a little bit. Everyone's into the 20s. And Inala loses another Mana Crypt flip, goes down to 17. Nicol Bolas going into the plus mode again. Panharmonicon for the Inala opponent. That seems pretty good with Inala. So end step, we've got some stuff to do. Right now I'm torn between Command Beacon or Arcane Lighthouse. Arcane Lighthouse would let us take down the Azuri, which is a good thing. So crack the Expedition map. I'm going to get the Command Beacon because I feel like we really need it. And on the end step, we're going to rearrange top of our library. Gauntlet of Power, Lash Writhe, and Terramorphic Expanse. Terramorphic Expanse, definitely onto the bottom. Question is Lash Writhe or Gauntlet of Power. Actually, we'll end up drawing both because of the Phyrexian Arena, so we don't have to make that choice. So Phyrexian Arena, we get to draw an extra card. There's the Lash Writhe, and there's the Gauntlet of Power. So we're gaining 8 mana off of the black market. Oh man, this is tough. The Trigon Predator is good at keeping our opponents in check and has not yet attacked us, but it could, and I really feel like we need to be protecting our stuff. Unfortunately, we don't have any instant speed answers currently. Actually, let's take a look and see what's on top of our deck with Divining Top. 3 lands. Well, in that case, we have to blow up the Trigon Predator because it will be lethal to us on the next turn. So yeah, I think we have to get rid of it, as much as it's keeping our opponents in check. So play the Command Beacon, crack the Command Beacon, Tetzimoc Primal Death into our hand, and now we're going to put a bunch of counters on things. So put one on the Trigon Predator, put one on this Manifest Creature, and can't forget these 2 Massacre Worms. Opponent says he's been marked as dino food. Well, now that our opponents see what we're doing, we can't really back out of our plan, so that's not great. So Tetzimoc Primal Death coming into play. Destroy all the creatures marked with a prey counter on them. More black market triggers, more Massacre Worm triggers, and more Mimic Vat triggers. I would love it if we can get our Vampire Nighthawk back. Copying the... Yeah, we get Vampire Nighthawk back, although they'll probably take our Massacre Worm, which would have come into our graveyard anyway, which is also not a bad option. Yeah, so opponent takes the Massacre Worm, but that does give us the ability to get the Vampire Night... now they leave the Massacre Worm. What did they grab? Oh, the Trigon Predator, you say. Ugh. Yeah, the Trigon Predator is bad news. More charge counters on black market. Very nice. Next thing to do is activate our Cabal Coffers, get some more mana. And by more mana, that doesn't give us very much mana at all. It does change some of it into black for us, though. Right here, we'll get down the Grave Titan, make some zombies. Pass the turn. Unfortunately, we don't have enough to use the Volrath Stronghold. On our upkeep, I'm planning to bring back the Vampire Nighthawk into our hand. The life gain combined with Lash Writhe will be really, really good. Rhystic Study for the intent opponent. Riku of 2 Reflections coming into play. If opponent casts a spell or plays a creature, they may pay 2 and copy it. Reclamation Sage coming in. Let's see what opponent goes after. Hopefully not something of ours, but we've got some scary stuff, so a lot of different ways that they could point this thing. Reclamation Sage happens to be a shaman. We can choose to attach Thornbite Staff to it, and Riku goes onto the stack. Opponent does not appear to have the mana for Riku. Nice, so the Reclamation Sage is going after the Mimic Vat. We are not going to use Thornbite Staff's ability. Nice, that protects our black market and all of our enchantments, because they could have laid down a Trigon Predator and started blowing our stuff up, which would have been really bad. There's a Rotwolf coming into play. Yeah, that thing could be super lethal with all the counters it's going to get from Uzuri. The awkward part about Lightning Greaves is that Uzuri can't put counters on things that have Shroud. So that puts our opponent in an awkward position with this Rotwolf, where they can't give it both haste and give it all the counters in the same turn. Opponent plays a Plaxcaster Frogling, Graph 3. Target creature with a +1/+1 counter on it gains Shroud until end of turn. Seems good with our opponent's deck. So the Rotwolf is a 9/9. It's pretty big. Opponent decides to send their Uzuri into the Nicol Bolas. Sounds like a plan. Uzuri decides to move the Lightning Greaves over to the Rotwolf. That'll make it hard for us to deal with. We do have an Arcane Lighthouse in our deck, but I don't think we have any way to be able to find it this turn. I'm pretty sure it's still 3 lands on top of our deck, which is not great. Tetzimoc looks like a really spiky Triceratops. Memory Plunder for our opponent. Let's see what they're going after. Mystical Tutor. That could be a lot of things. That could be bad things like Cyclonic Rift. Cyclonic Rift would make me pretty unhappy. Go with the Decree of Pain. Ugh. Cast Decree of Pain, draw 1,000,000 cards? Yep, that's the plan. So Tetzimoc, I'm going to send back to the command zone like normal. We could send it to the graveyard with the Volrath Stronghold out, but we have other things that we need to pull out of our graveyard. We'll take a peek at the top of our library with Sensei's Divining Top. Although Decree of Pain is, in a way, still better than the Cyclonic Rift, because we have a lot of non-creature stuff down right now. Put the Terramorphic Expanse on top, just so we can shuffle our library if we need to. So there's not going to be any creatures left in play, so we won't need to do the Command Beacon trick with Tetzimoc. We just want to get them back into play as quickly as we can. The good news is that opponent can't cast anything else, so even though they're about to draw a bunch of cards, they will have to discard down to hand size. They'll still be able to sculpt a really good 7, but that's better than being able to just keep 15 cards in your hand. Many more counters on the black market. Nicol Bolas is going to exile a card from the top of our library. Joke's on them! It's all lands. Exiles our Terramorphic Expanse. Gotcha, opponent. Gotcha. Oh, it does get a Sangromancer, though. How many cards they get to exile? Oh, non-land card. So that's good, actually. I can live with the Sangromancer because that means our opponent just milled past our lands, which is exactly what we want. Meaning we're going to draw into some hopefully better action. That's a really lucky break from us. We do have to be careful with the Sangromancer because the way creatures have been dying this game, opponent stands to gain a lot of life. Sangromancer, also a Vampire Shaman. We are not going to use the Thornbite Staff. Free equip ability. Lightning Greaves would be spectacular. If we had like Lightning Greaves, Luxodon Warhammer on top, that'd be the stuff that I want to see. Wow, we have 19 counters on black market. That is ridiculous. We're going to activate Sensei's Divining Top end step, and there's a Rise of the Dark Realms. Decree of Pain, not going to do that much right now. Rise of Dark Realms is pretty interesting. We'll put Solemn in the middle, Rise of the Dark Realms on top. That would get us Grave Titan, Massacre Worm, Vampire Nighthawk, Riku of 2 Reflections, Reclamation Sage. Ooh, I like Reclamation Sage. Vesuvian Shapeshifter, which could be another Reclamation Sage. A Rotwolf, Plaxcaster Frogling, Hornet Queen, Sakura Tribe Elder. Yeah, this Rise of the Dark Realms is going to be a good one. So Rise of the Dark Realms, Solemn Simulacrum, add 19 mana to our mana pool. First thing I'm going to do is take another peek with our Sensei's Divining Top, just to make sure that we have all the relevant information that we need to play this turn out. So 2 lands and a Decree of Pain, not too exciting there. Doesn't really matter. We're gonna use the Bloodstained Mire this turn and shuffle our library anyway. Actually, I'm gonna do that right now and then check on top of our library one more time. Barter in Blood and Kokusho. Kokusho is not a terrible thing. We could copy Kokusho with the Vesuvian Shapeshifter. Any other clone effects? There's a Clone Legion. There's a Jace Vryn's Prodigy. Interesting card. Teferi and a Trinket Mage. We will pay for the Rhystic Study. Down to 12 mana in our mana pool. Choosing black. Play Rise of the Dark Realms. Pay for the Rhystic Study again. We get so many creatures. Hornet Queen, Tribe Elder. I think I'm going to copy the Rex Sage. That seems like where I want to be. Oh, it has to be the Sangromancer. Because I guess Vesuvian's Shapeshifter can't enter at this. Oh my god, that's so many triggers. We don't have any blue or green mana. So these Riku triggers aren't going to do much for us. Wow, that's a lot of triggers. So Thornbite Staff triggers a couple times. I can't even tell what it's being attached to. What is the scariest card? The Rhystic Study is annoying because opponent can draw like crazy. Lightning Greaves is not great for us. Panharmonicon can do some wacky stuff. think it's got to be the Rhystic Study. That's the one that probably helps our opponent find an answer. Hornet Queen, Grave Titan, whole bunch of graph triggers. Exploits a creature, return to their hand all creatures your opponents control with toughness less than the exploited creature's toughness. We're not going to do that. No exploit. Anything we need to give Shroud? Oh, also the Divining Top is in our library. The Divining Top's been doing good work for us, so we'll get the Divining Top back. Attach the Thornbite Staff to something. What do we attach it to? Oh, perfect. It's on the Vampire Nighthawk. Exactly where we want it to be. Play the Solemn Simulacrum. More triggers. Use the Solemn Simulacrum ability. Drop the Divining Top. Drop the Lash Writhe. Play the Kakusho. And look at the top of our library. There's a Crux of Fate. Crux of Fate is good. And with that, we can pass the turn. Wow, that was a turn. We have a massive, massive board state. In case you guys didn't know, you can do a lot when you have a black market with 19 counters on it. Oh, opponent blows up our Volrath Stronghold. There is a Crucible of Worlds in our deck. We'll just need to find it if we need to get it back. But, oh god, opponent plays Ixodron? Oh, that's so disappointing. 16/16 Ixodron. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types.
Three Horns never play with long necks.
Interestingly, Jace did not get turned face down. Champion of Lambholt coming in. Opponent's going to get a copy of Champion of Lambholt. Bident of Thassa coming in. And puts the boots on the Champion of Lambholt. Opponent loses another Mana Crypt flip, down to 11. Let's see if they have any big plays. They're going to need one. Dark Petition is a good play. I bet they can wipe the board with that. Yep, there's a Damnation. So all of our stuff going away. About 1 million Thornbite trigger things on the stack. Oh my god, we're going to get so many counters on Black Market. Can I auto-stack these triggers? That would be amazing if I could. We are starting to run low on time with dealing with all these triggers. Unfortunately, our Sangromancer was flipped over because we would have gained a ton of life. 47 counters on our Black Market. Wow, we're going to have so much mana. We're probably not even going to have that much to do with it. We have a Divining Top, so we're going to have to hope that we draw into some cool stuff. Use Divining Top right now so we can F6 the rest of the turn. Still Crux of Fate, High Market, not great choices. So Phyrexian Arena trigger on the stack for us. We draw, it's the Crux of Fate. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to activate the Sensei's Divining Top before our draw step. See if we can find something a little more impactful. Erratic Portal is meh, but the best thing that we have, so looks like it's going to be that. Problem right now is now someone needs to deal with that Nicole Bolas God Pharaoh. It's ready to ultimate, and Black Market is going to give us 47 mana. So we will use the Divining Top one more time. Whip of Erebos. Whip of Erebos is okay. Let's get that on top. Draw the Whip of Erebos. Cast the Whip of Erebos. Choose a creature. We will choose... We're going to choose the Massacre Worm. Actually, no. We're going to choose the Grave Titan, because the Grave Titan will get us blockers, in case something goes wrong. Put the Lash Writhe on the Grave Titan. Play the Erratic Portal. Play our Commander. Ooh! Nice! So, the Inala opponent scoops it up. Put the Thornbite Staff on the Tetzimoc. Is there anything else we can do? I think that's it. Leave our 22 mana, since there's nothing else we can do. And start attacking other opponents. So Grave Titan attacked, we get more Grave Titan zombies. The Grave Titan will fortunately have lifelink, which will boost up our life a little bit. So we go back up to 29, Grave Titan gets exiled, and pass it to our opponent's turn. Intet the Dreamer coming into play. And opponent passes. They do have a decent amount of mana up. They have 3, 4, 5 mana plus a Sapphire Medallion. That could be some nasty stuff. Looks like no action out of the Azuri opponent. So we draw our Sensei's Divining Top. Then we draw a land. Black Market triggers. 47 more mana coming to us. Play the Divining Top. Look at the top card. Great Betrayal's a card. We'll activate the Whip of Erebos. We'll get the Massacre Worm just because it's got some power associated with it. But -2/-2 on all of our opponent's creatures, which is only the Intet right now. I really hope that Azuri's last card is not a Cyclonic Rift. That would be heartbreaking. So use the Thornbite Staff to shoot down the Intet with Tetzimoc, and the Death Touch will... crap. So Tetzimoc doesn't untap because he sent it to the command zone, That's kind of annoying. That's okay, though. Equip the Lash Writhe to the Massacre Worm. Did we already look with the Binding Top? I can't remember. Oh, yep. Great Betrayal is our top card. And let's go to combat. Attack like that. Hope there's no blowouts. Nice. So Azuri goes down, and it's just the Intet opponent. And I'm going to try using the Erratic Portal to bounce our Massacre Worm. I think that'll prevent it from getting exiled. No, it just gets exiled. Well, it was worth a shot. So Intet's going to need a big play. They do have a Phyrexian Arena, so they get 2 draws. 7 cards in hand. We're up to 54 life, but we are fighting our timer. We're down to 3 minutes on our timer. This was a 40-minute game, too, so this deck was very click-intensive. Opponent down to 6 off of their Phyrexian Arena. Oh, man, I'm so nervous. Again, I'm not really nervous board state-wise. I'm just nervous that we're not going to have enough time to actually close the game out. Opponent says, good game. Nice. There it is. Opponent had Mana Drain and Vesuvian Doppelganger. We got there. 3 minutes left on the clock. So, Tetzimoc Primal Death. No one has been talking about Tetzimoc, but he's actually better than you give him credit for if you build around him the right way. And I'm not even sure that this deck is exactly where it needs to be. So what I noticed is Tetzimoc is really good in the late game. So I think the deck wants to focus on having some stuff to do in the early game, and waiting till you get to a position where you can then use Tetzimoc's ability, clear out all of your opponent's stuff, and then use things like Thornbite Staff to machine gun down any other creatures that come into play. The deck is really interesting. I actually really like it. I've played 2 games with it so far, and I've had a lot of fun in both games. Actually, I've won both games with it. Yeah, Tetzimoc, he's a lot better than people give him credit for. You guys should definitely try him out at some point. He runs a lot of cards that can be found in any mono black deck. Just a small handful of special build around me cards, things like Viridian Longbow, Thornbite Staff. Not too expensive, not too hard to get. Black Market was really, really good in this deck, although Black Market's probably, I can't remember what Black Market costs, but I'm sure it's a little bit expensive, being that it's out of, what is that, Mercadian Masks. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I certainly have. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.